Hello, my name is Gina Guerra. I am a psychology major and I worked with Dr. Jill Coleman for completion of my senior thesis. The title is at the bottom, and this will actually be a discussion on my thesis, and it is entitled Culture, Fat Talk, and the Body. So I will be telling you all about what I have been researching, and I hope you enjoy it. So, the first thing I'd like you to do is just think about if you've ever heard this statement, if you've thought of it to yourself. And the statement's right on the slide. It says, "Wow, I don't look so good in this. Am I putting on weight? Do I look fat?" And if you're kind of thinking, "Yeah, I have," or I've heard someone else say something like that, then congrats. You just witnessed fat talk about the perception of the body. And all joking aside, fat talk and body perception have become bigger and more noted discussion topics in the field of social psychology, both going hand in hand with one another. Body perception is how one thinks of or sees their body, while fat talk, as noted on the slide, is defined as degrading the body shape and weight of oneself or others, which is done mainly by talking negatively about your body or someone else's, as the example notes. I became interested in this topic of fat talk and body perception after hearing about it in my eating disorders course last semester, and the prevalence of it, especially within the college setting, is actually really astounding to learn about. In a 2012 study by Salk and England Maddow, 93% of undergraduate females engaged in fat talk. That is almost all of the participants in the study. There's also been a correlation suggested for engaging in fat talk, leading to a more negative body perception or dissatisfaction with the body that can lead to low self-esteem, depressive symptoms, or even eating disorders. With the high number of engagements in fat talk, as well as the negative mental health possibilities, this makes it an important area to consider within the field of psychology. However, the body of research on these concepts together is very narrow, and most of the participants for each study all have one common factor. They are mainly white females. All that information led me to this research question of how does fat talk occur and how is body perception both understood and exhibited by college females of different racial and ethnic groups. I wanted to see if there was a potential for differences within racial and ethnic groups concerning body perception and fat talk, and really just expose the slim literature for each of the groups I studied. I hope to understand how these possible differences existed, and if so, how was it potentially influenced by the dominance of white culture? In order to combat my research question for my thesis, I decided to construct an analysis and literature review of the research I found, such as books, articles, and journals, to compare and contrast three different racial and ethnic groups, since they were the ones that appeared to have the most research done on them. The three groups I chose were African American females, Hispanic, Latina, Chicana females, and Asian females. First group I focused on was African American females. A lot of the scholarly research had theorists utilizing the term favorable body talk for African American females. Fury et al. Defines favorable body talk as positive, uplifting comments about themselves and their bodies. This concept of engaging in more favorable body talk led to a more positive viewpoint about the body, as well as seeing other attributes like hair, skin, and attitude as more important factors to focus on rather than body shape or weight. However, Parker et al. Suggested that external feedback or images in the media, comments from peers, or witnessing fat talk may be shifting their positive body thoughts into more of body dissatisfaction as of recent times. However, through the usage of favorable body talk and feeling a positive connection with their peers, culture, and selves, it turns out that there is a more collectivistic view of body positive ideals and self-talk within their culture. The next group I focused on was Hispanic, Latina, Chicana females. One of the key aspects I found was that there was more of a pressure to engage in favorable body talk and even a suggestion of potential usage of fat talk but by using other terms. An example was the usage of gordita, or what translates to little fat one. It is considered a term of endearment within Hispanic culture, but can be perceived as mocking or even causing negative affects to the individual. It is also suggested that the pressure to engage in favorable body talk may be because of cultural protective boundaries, such as family and tradition. However, even though this protection may exist, Franco et al. Found that Latina college women still may experience weight and shape concerns, especially due to the fact that the transition to college is a big and stressful one. They may be internalizing their new environment surrounding them and witnessing fat talk in its natural state. It was also suggested that the thin ideal may be why these concerns occur as well. The thin ideal is seen as the Western white culture acceptance of thin bodies being the norm within society. The thin ideal was present in each one of the groups I studied and played a key role in fat talk or body perception. Altogether, even with possible fat talk, pressures of favorable body talk, and the internalizing of the thin ideal, it turns out that there is still a more positive viewpoint of the body. However, dissatisfaction may still exist between the cracks, especially in the college environment where white culture mainly flourishes. Finally, the last group I focused on was Asian females. The interesting thing to note about this group was that there was more research done on their dissatisfaction with the body and a very limited amount of research done on their conduct of fat talk. It turns out that the thin body ideal has increased within the last 20 years and has remained consistent as well over this time frame within their culture. This is mainly because of the influence of white culture and media internalization, not just found in the United States but even in other countries as well, such as Japan. This internalization has advocated for what Hall has deemed the pursuit of an ideal body, or obtaining that desired, skinny, light-skinned body that is found within both their culture and the dominant white culture. The pursuit of an ideal body is found within everyone, but has more so been found within minority cultures because of the presence of the dominant culture. Along with this, when researching Asian college females and their fat talk tendencies, there was an extremely low number even conducted on the topic. The one that I did find concerning it led me to see that fat talk engagement is not due to a fear of rejection from their culture, as it turns out it is within white culture. So it then poses the question of what might be causing any fat talk that does occur then. And it turns out, as with many of the other reasonings, it is the influence of white media and popular culture, because of the dominance it holds in the way it presents itself as being the norm and right way to be. There may be other factors involved as well, such as body dissatisfaction and thin ideal importance, but the major reasoning found is the influence of Western culture. Tackling my research question concerning fat talk and body perception amongst college females of various racial and ethnic groups was an interesting experience. However, reaching true results or conclusions was kind of difficult due to the lack of findings within the field. The conclusions I did reach on my own, though, involve the fact that white culture plays an important role in fat talk and body perception, not just within its own culture, but others as well. Since they are seen as the dominant and superior one, what they say or do impacts the ones considered to be below them as well. This is also why the numbers of fat talk or body dissatisfaction are rising, even with the supposed barriers in place. The impact of Western culture has been dominant for many years and it only continues to grow. Without the representation necessary for minority races and ethnicities, the research on these topics will only advocate for the regular dominant culture and ideas will be generalized. Advocating and exposing the slim literature for racial and ethnic minority females is the only way awareness can be brought about concerning fat talk. Because without exposing it, how are we going to know it's there? And how are we going to know that these representations are so scarce and in limited numbers? We won't. Since I have been discussing all these low numbers found within the research, I thought it would be a good idea to put some examples of them in here as well. These would help argue the fact that we need more representation of racial and ethnic minorities in the literature that is supposed to be concerning them. The first picture in Gluck and Gelderber's 2002 study, out of the 194 participants, 108 were white, 46 were African American, and 40 were Asian. Just think about that. 108 participants were white. The next picture in Fury et al.'s 2016 study, 83.4% of the participants were non-Hispanic white, while the rest were 5% or lower. 83.4%. That is over half of the participants. These are just two of the countless numbers of articles, journals, and books I found concerning the racial and ethnic minorities and fat talk and body perception. This is a clear sign we need to establish higher numbers of non-white participants within this research and data. So the question then becomes, what's next? What's next in this body of literature and studies? More research. Further research on these groups, as well as the many other ones found in our society today, is definitely needed for these topics. It was difficult to even find any literature to analyze focusing on fat talk and racial and ethnic groups as the main participants, rather than just generalizing it with the white participants in there. Along with this, I feel that more research with fat talk involving men would be very important as well, since there have been emerging studies suggesting that fat talk exists, but with muscularity, in a mainly male oriented context. It would be interesting to see how it is conducted in relation to females and fat talk. And overall, I feel that much more research is needed to get potential answers as to why some of these aspects exist or fat talk occurs within these cultures. It would benefit this field immensely and raise awareness to the understanding and representation needed for fat talk and body perception other than white. The next two slides are just a works cited and a quick thank you to those who helped me with this project. And I just want to thank everyone who listened, and I hope you enjoyed it.